How could one of the most powerful military forces in Europe, a victor of the Great War, be utterly vanquished in just 6 weeks? This question haunted the world during the spring of 1940, as the Battle of France, an event that would become known as the Fall of France, unfolded with shocking and brutal efficiency. Over a period stretching from the 10th of May to the 25th of June in that fateful year, the formidable war machine of Nazi Germany did not just defeat France, it also systematically conquered Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg, redrawing the map of Western Europe in a terrifyingly short span of time. In what seemed like the blink of an eye, German armed forces had overrun the Low Countries, driven the British Expeditionary Force from the continent in a desperate retreat, captured the iconic city of Paris, and compelled the French government to accept a humiliating surrender. The world watched in stunned disbelief as a continental superpower crumbled under the weight of a new and devastating form of warfare. The blueprint for this stunning victory was a meticulously crafted German operational plan codenamed Fall Gelb, or Case Yellow. The strategy was a masterclass in deception and audacious military thinking. Nazi Germany's overarching design was twofold, relying on a clever feint to lure the Allies into a fatal trap. The first part of the plan involved a powerful invasion of the Low Countries, a move calculated to be both aggressive and predictable. German High Command anticipated, correctly, that this initial thrust would compel the French and British troops to abandon their defensive positions and rush their best forces north into Belgium to meet the threat head-on. While the Allies were preoccupied with this seemingly primary assault, a second, far more decisive German force would execute the true masterstroke of the campaign. This army group was tasked with navigating the dense and rugged terrain of the Ardennes forest, a region of southeastern Belgium and northern Luxembourg that the Allied command considered utterly impassable for a modern armored army. The ultimate objective of this surprise drive was to bypass the heavily fortified Maginot Line entirely, burst out into the French heartland, and pivot north to sever the Allied forces in Belgium from their lines of supply and communication in the south. The Allied commanders, their strategic thinking still deeply rooted in the static trench warfare of the First World War, fell perfectly into the trap. Believing that history would repeat itself, they were convinced that the main German offensive would come through the flat plains of central Belgium, just as it had decades earlier. In response to the initial German movements, they enacted their own prearranged plans and rushed their most mobile and powerful forces to the Franco-Belgian border, preparing for a confrontation that was, in reality, a diversion. The true German attack, the Schwachpunkt of the invasion, was already in motion far to the south. The German strategy hinged entirely on this element of surprise, on exploiting the Allies' deeply ingrained assumptions about the limitations of armored warfare and the impassability of the Ardennes. This single catastrophic miscalculation by the French and British leadership allowed German forces to outflank the entirety of the Allied defensive line, setting the stage for a swift and overwhelming advance that would shatter the front. As envisioned in Fall Gelb, German armored units, the formidable panzers, sliced through the Ardennes with astonishing speed. They punched through the thinly stretched and unprepared French forces defending the sector, crossed the Meuse River, and began a relentless, lightning-fast race down the Somme River. This armored spearhead tore across northern France, sowing chaos, confusion, and disarray in its wake. The French command structure, centralized and slow to react, was completely paralyzed by the speed and direction of the assault. There was no strategic Allied reserve of any significant strength positioned to launch a counterattack. The best Allied armies were now far to the north in Belgium, increasingly cut off and irrelevant to the decisive action unfolding behind them. With nothing to stop them, the German advance forces reached the English Channel near the town of Abbeville at the mouth of the River Somme in just 1 week. This maneuver completed a gigantic pincer movement, trapping the Dutch, French, Belgian, and British forces between the two advancing German army groups. The Allied armies that had confidently marched into Belgium were now caught, their backs to the sea, squeezed into an ever-decreasing pocket in northern France and Belgium. As the German forces closed in, the situation became desperate. In a monumental feat of naval improvisation and courage, the British and French navies launched Operation Dynamo, a desperate mission to evacuate the encircled elements of the British Expeditionary Force, known as the BEF, along with their trapped French and Belgian comrades. From the beaches near the port of Dunkirk, or Dunkirk, a flotilla of warships and civilian vessels ferried troops across the English Channel to the safety of Great Britain. In this remarkable evacuation, more than 300,000 French and British soldiers were rescued from certain capture or annihilation, preserving a core of experienced manpower that would prove vital for the continuation of the war. Despite the miracle of Dunkirk, the fate of France was all but sealed. With the most effective Allied armies either evacuated or destroyed, German forces initiated the second phase of their campaign, an operation codenamed Fall Rot, or Case Red, on the 5th of June 1940. The remaining Allied divisions in France, approximately 60 French and 2 British divisions, made a determined and heroic last stand along the Somme and Aisne rivers. However, they were no match for the German military machine, which now enjoyed complete air superiority with its Luftwaffe and possessed an overwhelming advantage in armored mobility. The German army systematically defeated the beleaguered defenders, outflanked the now useless Maginot Line from the west, and pushed deep into the heart of France.
On the 14th of June, German troops entered Paris, which had been declared an open city to prevent its destruction, occupying the French capital unopposed. The capture of Paris signaled the final collapse. With the French army shattered and the government in flight, any hope of continued organized resistance evaporated. German commanders met with French officials on the 18th of June to negotiate an end to the hostilities that had raged for less than 2 months. 4 days later, on the 22nd of June 1940, the second armistice at Compiègne was signed by France and Germany, bringing the Battle of France to its tragic conclusion. The terms of the armistice were severe. As part of the agreement, Germany would occupy all of northern France and, crucially, the entire French Atlantic coastline down to the border with Spain, ensuring the British Royal Navy could not use its ports. In the unoccupied southern part of the country, a new French government was established in the town of Vichy. This regime would govern the so-called Free Zone, but would exist under the shadow of its powerful and victorious neighbor, marking the beginning of a dark chapter of occupation and collaboration in French history.
Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment with your thoughts or next video ideas.